Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news this Saturday morning. It's a busy Saturday. Arsenal at Villa. I'll be doing the watch along for that on That's Football. You can join me for that. And if you're into your F1, I'm qualifying at 3 o'clock. I'm not actually driving, but I'm covering the qualifying for the match for the race tomorrow. But Manchester United news, let's get into it. And please, can somebody remind me at the end of the show to book a haircut? I was meant to do it last night. I forgot. I was just about to go live and I remembered looking at myself. And I'll forget because I'll get wrapped up in this show and I won't book it. I need to book it. So please remind me in the chat. Let's go. Right. First thing I want to talk about is the Tchouameni interest from Manchester United. We've also got updates on Ten Hag. There's an interesting situation developing around strikers. Nunez, Isaac have been linked to Manchester United. I want to discuss why I think both deals are really difficult and almost don't make sense for Manchester United. We'll be talking about that as well. And there is a rumour this morning that Spurs might be interested in Pochettino. Please go back to Spurs, Pochettino. Also, we've got a bit of a poll going in the live poll at the moment. It's would you rather sign Tchouameni or Declan Rice? I'll check out that in a minute. I can see Tchouameni's winning, but he's probably winning by quite a lot, to be fair. Rudiger off to Juventus, says Blue Man. I think Rudiger would be a very difficult deal for Manchester United to do. I've got no doubt that Man United would like to get Rudiger, but I think with that deal is going to be very difficult. The way I watch Rudiger when he plays for Chelsea, I do think he likes Chelsea, and I don't think he'd just go from Chelsea to United. I don't see that. Also, I don't think United's necessarily a step up for him, is it? I mean, United might not win a title for 10 years. See, what are you going to United for? History, stadium tour, money. We've got to be realistic about what we are as a football club. If Ten Hag wants Haller as his 9, he'd want Kane, says Robert McCormack. Well, I don't disagree with that, Robert. I just think that Harry Kane's a bad signing for Manchester United, which sort of feeds into what we're going to talk about as the first story. There is an update from Ten Hag. This is coming from. In fact, we'll talk about Tchouameni, but I suppose Ten Hag is more relevant now that Robert's mentioned that. So this is coming from Mike Verwey. I pronounce it. I probably get it completely wrong. He's really good, sort of Dutch-based journalist, very close to Ajax, podcaster, things like that. He's good. If you want Ajax news or stuff like that, I'm not saying he's tier 1 or anything like that, but maybe he is tier 1, but he's good. And what he's basically saying is that in relation to Ten Hag leaving Ajax this summer, he says, I think he made an agreement with Overmars that if a good opportunity comes along, he'll leave. And I think Van der Sar will respect that agreement between Overmars and Ten Hag. And then he goes on to say that the club is mentioned, the club that is mentioned a lot right now is Manchester United. And I think when a club like Manchester United comes knocking, you want to go there, even when it's a mess. I bring that in just for a little bit of context because it is from a Dutch, certainly an Ajax person who's close to what's going on at that football club. And it basically replicates what is being going on for the last few days, really. I would almost say a week. Well, there's just this very strong indication that Ten Hag wants the job at Manchester United. It started about a week ago. There was some suspicions that it was coming, it was sort of being leaked from Ten Hag's camp. I don't know. I mean, that's one thing I find quite refreshing about Ten Hag is I don't really know what his attitude or approach is to the media and how, if he ever would manipulate it. He'll certainly need to learn that at Manchester United, as we know. Not the biggest club in the world when it comes to winning major titles, but the biggest club in the world, arguably, when it comes to news outlets and stories. So, yeah, it's been known for a week or so that Ten Hag is really interested in this Manchester United job and certainly has made it clear that he's interested in the Manchester United job. And that is only further substantiated by the fact that this is another Dutch outlet saying that he wants the job and Ajax wouldn't stand in his way to get it. So the only thing that's standing in the way is that, and I don't want to keep going on about it, but the only thing that's standing in the way in relation to Ten Hag to Manchester United is Manchester United and this Pochettino obsession that some people in that club have. That's the only thing, that's the only barrier, really. I do hope that there is a bit of desperation from Manchester United to get this deal done, though. I do hope that Ten Hag gives them a little bit of a hard ride in getting him, because I do want a manager that can have the freedom to do what they want to do. It's so important. If he comes into that club and says, I want to sell this player, and they say, no, you can't. And look, I'll use him as an example, even though I wouldn't actually sell him. If Ten Hag came into the club and said, I want to sell Marcus Rashford. I've been watching him for the last couple of years. It's just not right player for me. United would say no. Well, there's no point in. You may as well give me the job then. Like, may as well give Robert the job. It makes no sense. If you're not going to let a manager manage, what's the point? Why get all hyped? And what I would say is that if we did appoint Ten Hag, I'd be very excited and I'd applaud the club on it. But it's just one small step forward. The proof will be who leaves and who comes in the summer. What are the team selections next year? Because as we've seen with great managers like Jose Mourinho, they were still under massive restrictions from this board. If you can't manage, you can't manage. Klopp managers, Pep managers, Tuchel managers. Conte at Spurs, does he really manage? We don't know yet. And at United, you're not allowed to manage, and that's the most important thing. Why should the fans pick the manager, says Tim. Crying about Poch, proven in the Prem, Champions League final, try watching games instead of reading the chat feed, says Tim. You should have a second name of Tim Sherwood's Tim. But no, fair play, he's put his comments in there. I always find that sort of comment, it's almost like Tim thinks he's Tim nice but dim, basically. Because anyone can pluck an opinion out and make it sound intelligent. Why should the club listen to the fans? Pochettino's a proven manager. Watch his games and you'll see that. But you're acting like people don't watch football. I'll guarantee most of you lot watch more football than the board at Manchester United, bar maybe one or two members on that board. And then on top of that, most of you watch more football and understand football better than them. So Tim makes a very good point if we had a board which knew what they were on about, but they've proven to be failures. I would trust my postman more than that board at times. So Tim's got an ideological view on this, where the fans shouldn't be listened to because your club should be run well. As for watching Pochettino, I think a lot of people have watched Pochettino, and I don't. PSG. I mean, he's not done a great job at PSG anyway, but it's an absolute walk in the park to win that league. They should be winning that league by 50 points. It's a piss take. In the Champions League, they fall short. At Spurs, he fell short. I've seen more than enough of Pochettino to be confident in my analysis, which could be proved wrong, that he's had his best days. He's on his way down the mountain. He peaked at the Champions League final for Spurs. He got sacked 4 months later with the same team, and he's not done particularly well since. So I choose Ten Hag. But as for trusting the board, yeah, it's an idea. It's a lovely idea. Tchouameni, let's move on to Tchouameni. Tchouameni is fast, strong, and very technical. Liverpool want him, and he's only 22. But apparently Real Madrid agreed terms yesterday. So Slow Sports News. Well, I actually tweeted about this yesterday. Tchouameni to Real Madrid looked like yesterday morning it was done, and then a different Real Madrid journalist was saying it's not done. He wants to move to the Premier League, and this is sort of encouraged United fans and other Premier League club fans to say, let's go and get Tchouameni. If he does, Kevin, thank you for the super chat. If Tchouameni does want to come to the Premier League, then he is certainly a player that I would look at for Manchester United. And the reason I've done the poll in the chat, and let me just tell you that we've had nearly 4,000 votes, 77% would go with Tchouameni and only 23% would go with Declan Rice. I've got to say, I expected that to be a little bit closer. I was more thinking it would be 60-40. I don't know what Declan Rice has done to only get 23% of the vote and Tchouameni to get 77% of the vote, because when I look at it, there is a very clear issue here that Declan Rice, whatever you think of him, is very proven in the Premier League, and he's doing it in the Europa League now against teams like Sevilla. So there's no doubting Declan Rice's quality. I know there's a fear of another 80 million being spent, but I genuinely think that Declan Rice is a different. He's more Sancho than Harry Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, where we clearly overpaid. So I think Declan Rice is a very good player. For me, this is not about, oh, Tchouameni's better than Rice. I don't believe that at all. I think if we got one of those players, I would be over the moon. They are the quality of CDM that we need. They're at the right age. I think Declan Rice is a year older than Tchouameni, so he's just 23 and Tchouameni's 22. They're exactly the right player to bring to Manchester United and hold that midfield. Exactly the right player that's going to grow over the next 3 years into their prime and hopefully be with us for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. If we get either of those players, I'm happy. That's it. For me, it's not about I want this player over that player. The reason I would go for Tchouameni is because you will get him for half price, basically. He's half the price of Declan Rice, and we need to buy 4 players, maybe 5 players this summer. If you buy Declan Rice, you're not going to get much else with your money because you're going to play double. And it's like, if you're going out for a Saturday night meal tonight and one restaurant's doing a nice steak and the other one's doing a nice steak and there's nothing between them but the one across the road's got a half price offer, I'm going across the road because I'm going to save half my money. There's not much difference between the two. So, and that's the only reason I would go for Tchouameni. So maybe that's reflected in the chat. But interestingly, I just want to do, this is from the Y Scout platform. So there are different stat places, I accept that. But I just want to just compare these two players in their relevant on position areas, and this is for this season so far. So accurate passes 92% for Declan Rice, 89% for Tchouameni. Passes per 90, 53 passes per 90 for Declan Rice, which is very good considering McTominay's been down at 40. So Declan Rice 53, McTominay down at 40. So it's a massive improvement straight away on a McTominay. So 53 passes per 90 from Declan Rice, 57 from Tchouameni, so slightly better. Defensive duels won, 64% of his defensive duels won for Rice, 65% for Tchouameni. Recoveries per 90, 8.8 for Declan Rice, 11.3 for Tchouameni. Recoveries in the opponent half recoveries, so recoveries in the opponent's half, 3.7 per 90 for Declan Rice, 4.9 per 90 for Tchouameni. So, look, similar. You could say that Tchouameni edges it a little bit. He's a little bit more tenacious. He's a little bit more aggressive. But we're talking French League against the Premier League. So you've got to go, I think what I would say about the two is, and I can do it in a very, very quick summary. If we got Declan Rice or Tchouameni, I would be over the moon. I think they're exactly the sort of CDM that we want. With Declan Rice, you get somebody who's done it in the Premier League, but is very expensive. With Tchouameni, you get somebody who's not done it in the Premier League and is not as expensive, but I guarantee he's going to be a top player. In many ways, it's Poch Ten Hag. You've got Rice, who's basically Poch, because he's Premier League proven, but he will be expensive. You've got Ten Hag and Tchouameni, who will be cheaper, but haven't done it in the Premier League and are a little bit of a risk. But I'm absolutely confident that they're both capable of actually going beyond a Poch and a Rice. I think Tchouameni could be one of the best CDMs in the world. But United, will they do that? Enjoyed your second stand-up content, Mark, says Adam. Yeah, I've left the link in the description if you're interested in that. Thanks everyone who's watched it. I'll give it a shout out at the end as well. Also, what's also in the video description, I haven't put the little thing up, Spitch, the fantasy app, football app where you can play against each other. We've got a little community link, which is the second link, and the top link is where you download it. Compete against us. I've got me United Stand mug, which you can win. You can also win one of our Ronaldo-y hoodie things as well. The one that says dance on it. We've got that up for grabs. On the second link, that's where you play against me and everybody else. On the first link, you can win prizes and all sorts of stuff. So you just play for the weekend. So there's no United this weekend, but there will be English Premier League games where you can play against people. There'll be Bundesliga games. You can do it. It's just every weekend. So you don't roll your points on it. Refreshes every weekend. So you can just drop in and play and win cash prizes. You've got to be over 18. Links in the description. But on the second one, the second link is our community. So you play against me. If you're top of that one after the weekend, then you win one of these and the hoodie. So crack on. Free to play. Just got to be over 18. Thanks to Adam for the super chat there as well. So yes, the Tchouameni story is that United are one of the clubs in the Premier League that are interested, and that Tchouameni would prefer to come to the Premier League. Now he's got a contract till 2024. He's just turned 22. Fantastic player. If you watched him play the last couple of times with Pogba for France, amazing performances from him, and definitely going to be, I believe, a real superstar of French football in the coming years. Do I think United can get him? I think the problem that Manchester United have got, and I'll talk about this in the relation to the striker in the moment, the problem that I think that Manchester United have got in recruiting someone like Tchouameni is that Real Madrid really want him, and Real Madrid have been very aggressive in this window, as we've seen. On top of, I've always felt he would go to Real Madrid. If he's going to come to the Premier League, quite rightly, somebody said Liverpool are interested, Chelsea have been interested, maybe Arsenal get interested, and we might not be in the Champions League, and even if we are, Chelsea and Liverpool are a better option for him. So I see us being in a situation where we maybe don't get Tchouameni or Rice. I mean, we can all have our favourites. This is why I say I'd like to get one of them. The Rice thing, I just don't like the price. Price, baby. I just don't like it. But I do think we'll struggle to get both because I think other clubs will be looking at them as well. After seeing Arsenal for United more than buying good players, it's more about selling crap players, says Ulas. I am doing an Arsenal watch along at midday on That's Football. A very big game, actually. We drew at Villa. We need Villa to do us a favour, really. I wouldn't say the top 4 race is over, but I feel that this is the sort of game that if Arsenal go and win, they're going to believe so much. And they've done this a lot this season, Arsenal. They'll lose the game to the top 4 club, like Liverpool, and then they'll follow it up with a win and a win. And it nullifies that loss. We really need Villa not to lose to Arsenal today. It's I know we don't deserve top 4, but if we can grab it, I think we'd all take it, wouldn't we? And it's a huge game, so I'll be doing a watch along for that. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And as I said, if Arsenal do get top 4, I think that they probably are more attractive if they've got the money to Tchouameni than we are. So very difficult deal for United to do, but we should be all over a deal like that. We've got to get a proper CDM at this club. We haven't had a proper CDM at this club for years. If we get a proper CDM like a Rice or a Tchouameni, and their age profile and their talent, they could be our CDM for the next 5-6 years. We don't need to worry about it. It gives us some breathing space to maybe look at the youth setup or bring in a younger player that we develop alongside that player for the next few years. And let's have some continuity in this position so that we never fall into this trap again. The midfield has been neglected since Roy Keane retired. We never really replaced Roy Keane. We never really replaced Carrick when he retired. Scholes as well. We've neglected our midfield for many years, and that's why we've ended up in a situation where we're talking about McTominay and Fred and an almost geriatric Matic at times. We need to rebuild that midfield and then provide continuity for it. Look, I'm doing a watch along tomorrow for Forest against Liverpool. Garner's going to be playing against Liverpool. I can't wait to watch that. And he's another one that, you know, he's what, 20, 21, so he's another one for the future as well. So if we can buy a good holding midfielder and you've got Garner coming through as well and he can deliver, we've got some continuity there and we can finally start pushing people like McTominay to the bench. Brozovic is a free agent in the summer. Himanshu, I don't know whether we're going to get Brozovic, but I don't think anybody knows what we're going to get at the moment. I've almost in a way dismissed the signings of Tchouameni and Declan Rice because they're very hard. But if we don't get them, who are we going to get? Would we go for the Sporting Lisbon lad, Polina? Would we go for somebody else? I don't know. We don't know a lot about this transfer window at the moment because we don't know who the manager's going to be and we don't know what United's plans are. You can be linked with Harry Kane to Jonathan David. You can be linked with Declan Rice to Mark Noble. You just don't know what United are going to do in this summer transfer window. And I think a lot of that's because they don't know. Ronaldo will lift the Premier League trophy with United before he retires. Destiny is all, says Uhtred, son of United. Is it Uhtred, son of United? No, it's Uhtred, son of Uhtred. There we go. Okay, strikers. I want to talk about that. So, story coming in from the continent, actually specifically Spain, that Nunes, the striker at Benfica, who's impressing a lot of people, is impressing a lot of clubs, and the price tag has been set at 70 million euros. There was also a story yesterday about Alexander Isak, who also, Portugal is where Benfica is. Obviously, Isak's playing in Spain. Hi, Mark. Can you please give a shout out to my younger brother, Isaac? Says Francois. Hi, Cass and Isaac. Shout out to you. Hello, Luke, as well. He says Mark Goldbridge. Hello, Mark Goldbridge. But on to the striking situation. If we are in for Isaac or we are in for Nunes, you are going to pay around 60 million quid minimum. Maybe you'll get him for a little bit less, but I think around 60 million pounds. Now, obviously, a lot of fans are getting excited about the story that Ronaldo is going to stay. I'm not overly excited about that. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I just can't see him playing Thursday night football. But if he's got no option, he will have to stay if nobody wants him. Are we going to spend £60 million on a striker that's going to be an understudy to Cristiano Ronaldo is the interesting point here. United are not great at spending money on a position they need to spend money on, CDM. So why would they then decide to spend £60 million on a striker that's not actually going to play that much? Because Ronaldo will have a reduced role next year, but he's not going to be sat on the bench doing his Tesco shop, is he? He's still going to want to play, might not be able to play 3 games a week. I certainly think if we're in the Europa League, he might just say, I'm not playing in it. I'll just play Premier League games. You don't know. In which case, but there's still going to be a lot of time on the bench for a £60 million striker. And one thing I would say about a Nunes, if he goes to Atletico Madrid, he would expect to play. If he goes to a Newcastle, he will play. If he goes to an Arsenal, he will play. United, I was thinking about this morning in relation to the striker situation. United don't have an easy solution. Again, we've just spent a little bit of time talking about the holding midfielder, and if we don't get a Tchouameni or Rice, who are we going to go for when we need one? But in the striking situation, who are we going to go for there? We can't necessarily offer first team football, so who are we going to go? Who will we go for? Which is another. I suppose there's another split there. If Ronaldo goes, then you can offer first team football again. But I like the idea of a Nunez. I like the idea of an Isaac. I think whether they'd work or not, there's an element of risk. But I do like the idea of that striker. But I don't think we can offer what some clubs who are looking for strikers can offer. They can offer the first team spot. And I go back to Arsenal again. Lacazette, lack of threat. He might score some goals today, and Arsenal fans will love it. But Arsenal fans know that Lacazette, he ain't the man. And as soon as Arteta gets his striker, Lacazette's on the bench or he's gone. So you know if you sign for Arsenal, you are their number 9 next season, whoever you are. Well, if I'm Nunez and United want me and Arsenal want me, do I want to go and play in the Europa League and be on the bench, waiting for when Ronaldo's not tired? When Ronaldo's tired, or do I want to go to Arsenal in the Champions League and play every week? And this is the problem. We all know that we need a striker, but the profile of striker is very difficult, and it might not be very inspiring. If we get Ronaldo, if Ronaldo stays for another year, what sort of striker do you go for? I hear people talking about Nunez. I hear people talking about Calvert-Lewin. I wouldn't take him. I hear people talking about Richarlison, Isaac, Jonathan David, people like that, and I think, well, yeah, they're all options, but what are they? Their price tag to sit on the bench for a bit of the season might not be a good idea. Tim's back again. He says Poch and Kane, Rice and Lingard. Okay, don't know what that means. Tchouameni's joining Real Madrid, says Ali. Well, I thought that, but then there was a story yesterday about the Premier League saying that he wants to come to the Premier League. Schick is a very interesting player, Zero Blade. What I would say is, if you're offering me Kane and Rice, or you're offering me Nunez and Tchouameni, I'll get Nunez and Tchouameni for 100 million. You'll get Kane and Rice for 200 million. Well, if we're spending 200 million, I'll get Nunez and Tchouameni, and I'll spend the other 100 million on a really good winger, maybe like Anthony, and maybe another midfielder like Tielemans, or maybe a really good centre back. So for me, I would love a summer that was Tchouameni, Nunez, Anthony, and a good centre back. I really would. Mark, I've stopped watching United for a while now, and I kind of like it, says Harakesh. Well, we all have, mate. They're not playing. It's enforced whether you want to or not. Hi from Canada. Just wanted to let you know that people absolutely love you. Most of my friends who are not United fans think you're awesome. Kevin, thank you very much. It's always nice to get a nice message. Probably get a horrible one now, but thank you very much for that. And Nkunku's a good player as well. And Nkunku, Nunez, Tchouameni, and I don't know who I'd want at centre-back. The name that's in my head is Akanji, but I'm not 100% convinced about Akanji. I mean, he's 27 now. If he was 21 or 22, I'd probably be more inclined to go for him. But the fact that he's been around for a while and he doesn't really get mentioned in the top 10 centre-backs in the world, does he? When people are doing their top 10 centre-backs, I don't ever hear people mentioning Akanji, and yet he's 26, 27. So it just feels like he's a replacement for Eric Bailly. I don't like those sort of signings. Are we replacing a similar level of player for a similar level of player? Hope you're all good, Mark. I would love to see us signing Isaac or Richarlison if Ronaldo was to leave. They are so dynamic in their play, says Chris. Thank you very much, Chris Rodriguez. Mindset of this squad is the issue, and it's reflected by the board. Focus on social media numbers and infectious selfishness need to rebuild a team, says Joseph Whelan. I think the striking situation is interesting because, of course, we still have Marcus Rashford, we've got Elanga, we've got Jadon Sancho. There are 3 players there that all of them will be at United next season. You've also got the Martial dilemma. You've got some young players coming through that you never know could hit the first team at some point in the next 18 months. So I don't know what United's plan is for next season. I think the reality is they're worried about the Greenwood situation quite rightly, and they know that Cavani's going to leave, so they feel the need to bring somebody in. The profile of who they bring in, I personally, the one that jumps out for me, and some people might say that's ridiculous, but the one that jumps out for me because he's a very different type of player is Adeyemi, who looks like he's going to go to Dortmund. But Adeyemi is a player that I really like. and left-footed player as well, so offers you something a little bit different. In some ways, not a dissimilar with his feet. I'm not saying he's the same player, but he can score goals with his left foot, which is something that we don't really have in that team. I'm a Benfica supporter. Nunes will cost over 50 million. They've turned down 50 million a couple of times already. Love the content. Says it's accolades. Exactly, yeah. So that's the sort of price that you're going to have to look at, isn't it? We need so many positions filled that spending big money in one of them is not a great idea. I mean, he's an interesting player, Adeyemi. Let me just have a look at what Dortmund were looking at paying for him. I mean, he's a very interesting player for another reason as well. So 20 years of age. What's he done? Goals wise. Hey, that's way too loud, Seb. Can I have that in here? Yes, he's 20 years of age. I think, look, it's difficult with a player like that because you just don't know whether they're going to kick on. But interestingly, he's at Red Bull Salzburg, isn't he? And we know that Ralf Rangnick's got a good relationship with these Red Bull clubs. I think he's going to go to Dortmund. And somebody in the chat might already tell me he's gone to Dortmund. But that's an interesting type of profile player. And Adeyemi probably represents that sort of profile player. There will be lots of others, but a younger striker who in the next 2 years is going to become a really good top player is not necessarily a bad move for United, because that, I suppose what you're looking for is the Greenwood profile. Greenwood was going to be the next best thing, hopefully, and obviously I don't want to talk any more about him, but the reality is that sort of profile of player would not be a bad idea, because they would probably expect to not be starting games, but rotating with Ronaldo might work. Very difficult to find a player like that, but you want somebody that's about 30 million quid that fits that profile. And unfortunately, United have been linked to a lot of strikers that are about 50, 60 million pounds. And I just don't think we can buy a 60 million pound striker and then have Ronaldo playing ahead of them. Would love to see Adeyemi in the Prem. Love that man doing wonders at Salzburg, says Ian. I think he's going to go to Dortmund, to be honest with you. I don't know what this story is about Rudiger. I mean, I've never taken any notice about Rudiger really to United. I know that there was interest. I suppose it's very similar to Thomas Tuchel. There is definitely interest there, but it's a very difficult deal to do, and I just don't think we can do that deal. I don't think Rudiger wants that deal to happen. But a centre-back of that quality would be nice to bring in. I just must bring this in as well, just sort of wandering back to the manager situation for a moment. There was a story this morning. I mean, I think it's coming from Football Insider or something like that. So take that with a pinch of salt if you want to. It's certainly not a source that I, at this time, would go, wow, that's true. But there might be something in it, because they were talking about Spurs and Pochettino, and people have been talking about Spurs and Pochettino for a long time. I did a video on That's Football a few days ago, and I was talking about some reports in Italy saying that Conte to PSG could happen. Well, if Conte goes to PSG, then, and that's dependent on apparently there's a release clause in Conte's contract that he can leave in the summer if he gets a good offer. He's got to get a good offer. And PSG for Conte, I think Conte would be a perfect fit for PSG. Absolutely perfect. He's got the personality to manage all sorts of characters, which we've seen him do both in the Premier League at Chelsea and in Serie A. So I think PSG and Conte are almost the perfect fit. And if he was to leave there, there's a vacancy at Spurs, which maybe Pochettino would fill. I personally think that's exactly the right move for Pochettino. I think he's almost damaged goods now anyway. So going back to where it all started and maybe rebuilding his career is quite a good thing. I don't necessarily think there's anything in it, but it is quite encouraging, because if Poch is going to Spurs, then we're not getting him. And I do think Conte would be a good move for PSG, but also I think Conte is a good move for Spurs if they can keep hold of him. Can you see Rangnick having a big impact upstairs, says Matty. Well, I did want to talk about this. I think Romano was talking about it last night. I've always been told there's a lot of uncertainty about what Rangnick's doing in the summer. It's been very contradictory and very hush-hush, pretty much since the moment that he came into the club. And Rangnick's done no favours to the rumours by speaking a couple of weeks ago about not being consulted about the new manager, but here if they wanted to, not being consulted about signings in the summer, but being here if they wanted him, openly saying that publicly, that ultimately the club haven't really spoken to him about anything. But then, when I think Romano said it yesterday, that that Rangnick will have a big involvement in the signings in the summer and will work with the new manager in the consultancy role. So I'm a little bit sceptical. I just feel that the noise is coming out of United with it. They haven't enjoyed the Rangnick era as much as they thought they would. But I think that's because of the home truths it's delivered. And I'm hoping that United are going to act in a mature way and say that, all right, there's been a lot of bumps in the road since Rangnick came, but most of those bumps were exposed because they were already there in the Ollie era. They've just been well hidden. And actually, if you want to make an omelette, you've got to crack a few eggs. And certainly there's been a few eggs cracked over the last few weeks. So things will get better. I would persist with this Rangnick relationship and allow him to have a big say in our recruitment and our next manager. And ideally, I think Rangnick supporting a Ten Hag would be the dream. But also I don't really feel, well, Darren Fletcher's got no experience, so he needs somebody who knows he needs somebody to learn from, because the club are, dead set that Darren Fletcher's part of the future. So I think Rangnick's very important to someone like a Darren Fletcher anyway. And I also think John Murtaugh's not really a great director of football. Let's not forget, this guy came with David Moyes and has just basically hung around at the club for a few years and been promoted within the clubs, and our first director of football with very good background in development. But I don't think he's an experienced, well, he's not a direct, in the nicest possible sense, he's not a very experienced director of football. So it's not just to assist the recruitment of players, it's not just to assist the new manager. I think Ralph Rangnick can really be a massive learning point for Fletcher, Murtaugh, the new manager, and recruitment. And it'd be really stupid to let him leave the club. And I don't think people are talking about this enough. I firmly believe that on the development side of players, we have seen a massive improvement in people like Delot, Sancho, Fred, and there are others that have developed quite visibly and rapidly in a few months under Rangnick. But he's not really a first team coach anymore. He's more of a builder of clubs. So if we can take that expertise and use it, I'd be absolutely disgusted with this club if Rangnick leaves in the summer, because you set off on a path that excited people. Let's see it through. Can you see Rangnick having a big impact upstairs, was the question by Matty. I think if he's allowed to, he can. Alanga's obviously, the development of Alanga is really interesting, Habibi. Really interesting. I don't think it gets mentioned enough. If this was Ollie with Greenwood or any other young player, even Brandon Williams for a bit, it was like, Alanga is Rangnick's player. Like, I know Alanga played at the end of last season and scored. It was against Wolves, wasn't it? But Ollie was not giving him a look in. This season, he wasn't giving him a look in. And Ollie had a good history of that. With Brandon Williams, he used him for a bit and then threw him aside and wasn't using him. And Alanga was heading that way until Rangnick came in and suddenly starting games ahead of Marcus Rashford. Now, I think with Alanga, he's just very raw. He's a very raw player. He's got a hell of a lot to learn, but he's learning fast. So, yeah, there are some exciting young players as well. Would you rather have Ralph or Poch next season, says Tay? Well, it's not I was trying to think how you were phrasing that question. You're talking about as the manager. I would rather have Rangnick at the club. I think we have to continue what he started. So I would, yeah. And I think development's so important over the next 2 years as well. We've got to develop players. I've given up on some of these players. I think their attitude on and off the pitch is disgusting. I actually think some United players who've been appalling on the pitch, their attitude off the pitch is a disgrace. And so much of it is hidden. But their behaviour and arrogance off the pitch and the messages they're sending and the people they're getting to send messages are just disgusting. They're not United players, and they need to have a long, hard look in the mirror. But even those players, I still think if they're going to be here next year, they're surely going to improve with proper development. We've not had proper development of players. And it's interesting, we spoke about this as a community probably 8-9 months ago, and it was at that point, it was a novel subject, like nobody'd really discussed it. And it gets discussed more and more now. But At some point, Gary Neville or Rio Ferdinand or Paul Scholes will say it, and everyone will go, "Oh my God, they're a genius!" And we've been talking about it for a long time. There is no development of players at Manchester United for 3 or 4 years. You could even go back to Mourinho. Did he develop players? It's not really what he's about. So there's been 1 or 2 players that have come through and done reasonably well, but they've not took the next step. Bruno came in, very good player. We've not developed him. Rashford 3 years ago is the same player, well, he's worse, not been developed. Martial wasn't developed. Greenwood wasn't developed. Greenwood at the end was the same as the player he was at the start. The ability to shoot from both feet, very exciting player, but we didn't improve or develop his game. Fred and McTominay, not developed. We don't develop players. Most of our players are very similar to the day we bought them or promoted them. And that is something that Klopp and Pep do on the regular. And we've got to do that. And we will do that. We will do that. Because our last 2 managers, Mourinho is not a developer of players. There have been players that have developed under Mourinho, but he develops the finished article. That's what he does. He's not about developing a player from being, okay at 21 to world class at 26. Mourinho won't be around that long. Ollie definitely didn't develop players, didn't know how to do it. We need to appoint a manager that will do that. And to be fair, I don't want him as the coach, but you would see development under Poch. He is a developer of players. I just don't want that type of manager. But you'll definitely see it under Ten Hag as well. With this, what we've got to be able to do is buy a Tchouameni, who is, I would say, bordering a very good player at the moment, and take him from very good, top class to world class. We've got to do, if you take Isaac, you've got to do the same. Because that's what Klopp does. Klopp will buy a very good Mane at Southampton and turn him into a world-class player. He'll do the same with Jota. Andy Robertson. This is what they do. They take players 2 levels up. We take a player and flatline them and then knock them down. If you think about it, you're in a big tall building and there's 2 lifts, right? Klopp saying get on my lift, and then United are saying get on my lift. Klopp will take you up. United will say it's broken. Oh shit, we're dropping down. And that's what we need to do. We need to develop these players up. With this international break coming up, this is the perfect time for United to appoint a new manager, says Jack. But knowing United, they will leave it to the last minute. That's a great point. I want to talk about that. Mark, take a look at Schlotterberg at Freiburg for centre-back. Young, quick, strong, has got good passing range, says Anurag. Thank you very much for that. Well, being as it's the international break, there's some videos that I've got planned over the next week anyway. Around, I don't know what the video is going to be called, but it's basically a scouting mission where we're going to look at different positions and different players, utilise the system that I use, and I think it's going to throw up some interesting players, so I'm excited to doing that. But United should have been doing this already, of course they will have been doing this already. On the managerial situation, Kundan says that Greenwood leaving had more impact than we realised. Well, yes, it did, but in other ways, it's given opportunities to Elanga. We'll probably do them live, yeah. But just going back to that previous point there about the manager, my feeling is that Pochettino is not going to... If we go for Pochettino, it's not going to get announced. I think we'll know about it, but it won't be officially announced because I don't think PSG are open to us doing that. It makes PSG look like the loser. And PSG don't want to look like the loser. If United announce next week that Pochettino will be our new manager from June, PSG need to spin that in a very, so he's leaving PSG to come to United. That's not a good look for PSG. So I would imagine if we go for Pochettino, we will get it done in the next couple of weeks, but it won't be officially announced until the end of the season. And the more I think about it, the harder I think the PSG thing is to do. We shouldn't be doing it anyway, but I think it's very hard to do it because PSG will want to sack him. They will want to say, we've sacked this manager because he's failed. This is our new manager. I don't think they will want to part in, oh, Pochettino's going to Man United, he's our new manager. Oh my God, because United will make a big thing of it. I don't think PSG will be comfortable with that. Maybe I'm wrong. With Ajax, I wouldn't be surprised if it was announced next week that we've got him as our manager, and Ajax he will join in June, and Ajax say we're very proud of him, well done. I think with Ajax they know he's going to go, they're happy for him to go and move on and move up, and I think they're an easier club to deal with. So I think the next 2 weeks are going to be interesting because if we get Ten Hag, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an official announcement that he'll be our manager for next season. For now, he's staying at Ajax to hopefully win him the league. I think that could happen because I think Ajax are a very mature club that appreciate their role, that people are going to move up if they do well at Ajax, and I think that can happen publicly. I don't know how it can happen publicly with PSG and Pochettino. So hopefully that means we're moving more towards Ten Hag. Charles, you're an absolute legend. He says, Mark, don't forget to book your haircut. Exactly, I do need to do that. I appreciate the reminder. Make sure you smash a like on the video, by the way. We are going to have an 8 o'clock show tonight as normal, but let me just run you through the day. So midday, in just under an hour, I'll be live on That's Football YouTube channel for Villa against Arsenal, which is a massive game in the top 4 race. We need Villa to get us a result there. 3 o'clock on That's Football, I'm doing F1 qualifying ahead of the race tomorrow at 3 o'clock, where I'm doing a watch along as well. So if you're into Formula 1, That's Football's the place to be. 8 o'clock tonight back on here. I've dropped a link in the video description for Spitch. If you're interested in these football app games, you can win one of our hoodies and one of these if you hit the second link and play against me in the United Stand community. The first link is how you download Spitch. You can win cash prizes and all sorts of things. You must be over 18 to play, but it is free. And on the second link, we've got the United Stand community where you can play against each other and play against me. You accumulate points each weekend in whatever league you want to play in. Ultimately, it resets every week, so you just play for the weekend. It's good fun. Check it out and download it. And then finally, please do check out the link in the second paragraph, or just type in Goldbridge Stand Up Part 2. I put up a video last night. It's sort of me stood up in my kitchen telling stories and stuff like that. Some people really like it. I would love it if you would check it out. The first 5 minutes is apparently quite funny because it's me reacting to some hateful comments, which apparently some people quite liked. The link is in the video description for that. I would really appreciate if you watched it and left some feedback on it, and maybe subscribe to that channel because it's something new I'm doing, and I think if you like the content on here, you might like that, but I'd certainly appreciate your feedback on that. I'll see you in about an hour on That's Football if you want to join me on there. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video, subscribe, and take care.